Yo, this is your girl, Jula. You're listening to the Pastry Bear Podcast with Winston Murdoch. Hola, esta es Jula. Estás escuchando el Pastry Bear Podcast con Winston Murdoch.
Wow, what a beautiful voice. Listen, man, I gotta give a big shout out to my friend, Jula. Listen, you can go listen to her music on her YouTube channel, or you can stream it on all platforms. Or go check out our website, www.bocamiamusic.com. Listen, man, she's dope. And I also want to take the time out to thank you guys who are listening to this podcast right now. And for all the people who have been listening to all the episodes that I've been posting. I have to give a shout out to Chef Ashley Amoy. You are a phenomenal person. You've been supporting me on this journey for so long. Now, this season, I'm going to take you guys on a journey of getting to know me, and you're going to know more about the cuisine that I represent. There's so much out there for you to learn about Caribbean cuisine, but specifically Jamaican cuisine. What up, y'all, and welcome to another episode of the Pastry Bear Podcast. I'm your host, Winston Murdoch.
Watching a uppity with no pity, the road carve a versatile this I represent. Watching a Murdoch.
Pastry Bear.
Whoa, we're cooking up a storm today.
Listen, man, it feels so good to be back. So we're just gonna jump straight into our topic of the day. Today we're gonna discuss purpose. If it wasn't for me finding my purpose, I don't think I'll be continuing this podcast, The past 2 years, I found myself in a deep, dark place. At times, some things felt like it had no meaning. But throughout that circumstance or that situation, I found peace and I found my way. I want to break down the word purpose. What is purpose? Purpose is the reason for which something is done, or the reason something is created, or the reason why something exists. My purpose has led me on a new beginning. I took a break from social media and from the podcast scene because I wanted to find a meaning to my life. This is the reason why I am who I am today, and why I'm embarking on this journey where I'm going to take you, my listeners. I want you to travel with me as I discover modern Jamaican cuisine. And if you're not a chef or you're not a foodie, you can still use what I'm going to discuss in this episode in whatever aspect of your life. You see, 2 years ago, I experienced something traumatic. I found myself questioning my existence. I was living, but I didn't feel like I was alive. And that's when I realized that something had to change. After losing everything and now forced to start over, I wasn't awarded the opportunity or the privilege to take time to grieve. I think we all do that in life. When we're faced with some form of harsh reality that the world brings to us, we try to cope by just distracting ourselves. This was something I've been doing for my entire life, and that always led me in a circle. You see, I was experiencing the same problems, but in a different situation, with different people. And this time, I made a conscious decision that I was going to completely stop everything I was doing so I can find my way. And just by making that choice or that decision to want to know who I was, I started to research. And I found a few principles that helped me to find who I am. One of the things that I learned was you have to learn from adversity. After moving to America from Jamaica, it was a difficult transition for me. I was forced to learn an entire new way of living and an entire new way of cooking. I thought I knew everything by my extensive background, working in a lot of all-inclusive, some of the best all-inclusives in Jamaica, and some high-end luxury boutique hotels. But when I got to the States, I was bombarded with new ingredients and equipment that I never seen before. And on top of that, I was a newly married man with a son and a growing business. But then that all got destroyed when me and my partner got separated. And that separation led to a divorce. Growing up in Jamaica in a single parent home, I knew exactly the challenge that we were going to face. But let me tell you something. Nothing in this world could prepare me for the pain and anguish that I felt. My world came crashing down. I lost everything and was forced to start over again. But you know what? It was in this adversity that I found peace. I was forced to stop, and now I had no choice. I had to face my reality. And that's exactly what I did. In that moment when I wanted to blame everybody, but the only person I could blame was myself. But I learned something very important from that situation. And I never wanted that to happen to me ever again. So I committed myself to the next stage of this growth, which is mastery over oneself. You see, understanding who you are and why you do the things you do and why you think and act the way you act plays an important and integral part of being in control of yourself. I spent a lot of time after that adversity that I faced, reading books, trying to educate myself in areas that I think I was weak and lacking understanding. Some of the areas that I research, psychology. In order for you to understand you have to understand how the mind works. Your mind controls your entire body, and a lot of times what's inside of your mind is not a reality. And I don't want to get too deep in it, but if you're interested in finding your way, you have to tap into these areas of your life. Another important part that I do a lot of research in was spirituality. We grew up in a world where we're all taught to find a religion or some form of spiritual connection, because as humans we need something to cling to. We need a refuge. I also educated myself in finance. I wanted to know how money works. I wanted to be able to be more self-reliant. This is an important part of life, because if you're always living from check to check, always have money issues, then you won't be able to be still enough to find yourself, because you're going to constantly be trying to chase money. So understanding your finance is an important thing. Your health is important. What you eat affects the way you feel. And then I realized that if I'm going to be a chef, I have to understand the food. There's millions of ingredients in this world, and there's no way I can know all of them. But I can understand the fundamentals of food, the science behind food. And once I learned to understand these areas, that now helped me to break some destructive habits that was created due to the misguided mind.
Watching a Murdoch.
Wakute Podcast Pastry Bear.
One of the other things that I realized was important was learning to control the environmental influences. This meant that sometimes in life you have to leave some people. You have to separate yourself from some of your closest friends, some of your closest family members. You have to learn to protect your energy. You know, we are humans, and we tend to want to cling to a group or a class. But sometimes the people that we allow in our space, they determine who we become. You know, for example, I was deep rooted into music, and I thought that I was going to be a disc jockey on a local radio station. This is really not who I was, you know. How do I know that this wasn't for me? Because once I got introduced to the kitchen, that just faded away. That influence of music came one day when I was at my house. A 12-year-old Winston Murdoch sitting down in the front yard, and I'm hearing this music coming from like 2 houses next to my house. And I decided that I wanted to see what that was. And when I walked over there to the house, I saw the turntable and the records was playing, and I'm watching the needle bounce up and down on this record as I hear the music coming out of the speakers. And I was just fascinated, and I wanted to learn to play music. And I dedicated a lot of my time to that, and I was passionate about it. But then when my grandmother got me into culinary school and I got into the kitchen the first time, I had a choice to make. I was going to either go to continue playing music, or I was going to go in the kitchen. And at that point, I was never interested in being a chef. But because the love and respect I had for my grandmother, I decided that I was going to do that. I didn't want to disappoint her. And I went into the kitchen, and my music career went down the drain. So because I was influenced by that gentleman who was playing the music, that became a part of my life. And when my grandmother influenced me to go into the kitchen, that became a part of my life, and that kicked out the music career. So it's important that you have to control the environment. What if I was around negative people doing negative things, which I did do? And I can only imagine that you, my listeners, have probably experienced similar things where you've been influenced by someone or something in your present. So you see the importance of controlling your environment and the influences inside of it. That can help you to really zone in on your purpose. So let's get back to the steps. They say that 2 of the greatest warriors is patience and time. We're living in a world that everything is instantly gratified. We want things now. Nobody wants to wait on anything anymore. You know? Nobody has patience. It's like you want to bake a bread and you want to skip the fermentation and just eat. But in order for you to find purpose, you have to be patient, and you have to allow time to do its thing. Time allows one to build character and strength. And when you're patient, it allows you to be still and silent. This was a hard thing for me to do. As you know, we live in a world that is filled with distractions, and a mind that is bombarded with chatter and forced to process millions of information each day. So you can just imagine how difficult it was to be silent. Silent enough where you can hear God. And by God, I mean that inner spirit that speaks to you. That voice that be inside of you trying to direct you.
Pastry Bear. Ou écoutez podcast Pastry Bear avec Winston Murdoch.
Have you ever sometimes just sit back by yourself and realize you have two voices in your head talking to you at the same time? Some of y'all probably don't even recognize it or know that it is present. One of those voices is the voice that will lead you to where you're supposed to go. But 9 times out of 10, we always listen to the wrong voice. The voice that brings distraction, the voice that shouts. Take a second and think about what I'm saying. And give it a try. Just be silent enough. Be by yourself. No cell phone, no TV. Just go in a room or go to a place that makes you relax. And listen to the two voices in your head. So when you are able to understand how time works, then you know that nothing comes overnight and you have to be patient. And when you're patient, you're able to be still. And when you're still, you're silent. And it's in that silence that you're able to hear and find your way. And that's how I could dissect all the years of information and rules and laws that I was taught. I was able to find me. And that's when life became clear. The way I saw food changed. You see, a few years before that, I met my mentor, Chef Colin Brown. And when I met him, he used to tell me so much things about food and his vision for the culinary scene of the Caribbean. And I laughed at him a lot. He also told me that he thought that I was the one that was gonna turn this food scene around. And I laughed at him. But after the adversity I faced with my divorce, then I learned mastery over self. And then I controlled my environmental influences and understood time. So I was able to be patient and still enough. That brought silence, which led me to find myself. In that moment is when I realized that the answer was always there. And Chef Colin Brown was telling me this probably 6 years ago, but I was just moving too fast. I couldn't see it. He told me that you can never cook the food of any other cuisine and be as good as them. Because the level of understanding these chefs, let's say a Japanese chef for instance, the level of understanding they have with their ingredients, you can't come and after 6 years of being in a kitchen, you want to master a cuisine with people who have been doing it since they were born. So why are you trying to cook like them? Why don't you master what you know, Winston? All we were taught in culinary school was about French cuisine. This is what we're striving for. We're trying to master something that we were taught in school. The French is acknowledged around the world as the best cuisine. Majority of the trends are coming out of France and Italy, Germany, Japan. But like I said, the fundamentals and the foundation of food is created around French cuisine. So I was trying to get into that level, and Colin was trying to show me like, yo, no. Cook what you know for cook. He said to me, if you try to go into a French chef's kitchen and try to cook French food, they're gonna laugh at you. If you go into a Japanese kitchen or an Italian kitchen and they ask you to make something and you make something from your cuisine, that's gonna intrigue them. That's gonna make them look. And like I said, 6 years ago, he told me that. But in the moment when I was able to realize that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. That's when the curry goat start evolving in my mind. The oxtail start evolving in my mind. The way we cook it and the presentation, all of that just start flowing in my brain. But most of all, the sweet treats that I grew up eating, the gizzarda, the sweet potato pudding, the caramel pudding, the fried dumpling, the fritters. These things now start to evolve even more. And as I sat there, I started to write. And I was writing and writing. And the next thing I know, I had over 50 recipes that I created centered around the stuff that I grew up eating. And after creating these recipes, I realized, now what? I want to show this to the world. But there was a problem. In order for the world to accept this new cuisine that I'm going to give them, I have to first educate them. If I was supposed to throw everything out there on a platter, if people don't understand what's on the platter, they're not going to eat it. The other day, I tried to explain sending an email to my grandmother. She couldn't comprehend the concept of sending an imaginary letter via something called the internet. And somebody else in Jamaica can just receive it instantly. It was crazy, it was ludicrous to her. But in order for her to understand the concept, I would have to take each portion of the email process and break it down in sections to teach her over time. Well, it's the same thing when you're explaining the evolution that the culinary industry is facing and where I stand in that. So now you can see what my purpose is. And hopefully you can see what your purpose is. Everything that we need is right there in front of us. All the answers are right there. Listen, what happened to me can happen to you. And I want to help anybody that I can to find their way. I hope that a young chef or a young entrepreneur, a young lady or a young boy or an old person, whoever you are listening to me right now, know that there is a purpose for you in this world. You just got to search for it. And you have to start within. So, now that you understand my purpose and the importance of finding purpose, I want to take you, my listeners, every step of the way to learn what I learn, to see what I see, to taste what I taste, and most of all, to experience food from my perspective.
Seriously, I'll be a Bobby come and jump in there. That bitch jump and get Bobby on this.
The Pastry Bear Podcast.
Yo, why you are on the cut in a murder?